You see her story? Yes, our story. That's not just pain, that's purpose and progress. Hey y'all, welcome back to Her Story, and I'm here with Tashara Parker.
Hi.
Listen, I would say that you are known in the Dallas streets, but you are known nationally. Just that smile, your style, and your voice alone just brings all the people to see what's happening with you.
You're so sweet. I can say the same about you. Please don't even.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So let's start off. You have become one of the most recognizable voices in Dallas media.
Sure.
All right. So what originally sparked your passion for journalism and storytelling?
So I always have to go back to as a child. I lived in Houston, Trinity Garden to be exact, was the neighborhood. And whatever you can associate with living in the inner city is what I was surrounded by. Mm-hmm. And so I remember every time we would have a news crew, police crews coming into the neighborhood, it wouldn't be for something that was positive. Mm-hmm. And so I said, I didn't know it was called journalism. I didn't know it was called journalists, whatever. Mm-hmm. But when I got to college, I said, okay, what can I do to make sure that when young people like myself saw me in their neighborhoods, that it wouldn't always be for something that wasn't positive. Mm-hmm. So it started off with me just wanting to tell more positive stories and kind of release on the anxiety that I felt as a child when I would see those news crews coming into our neighborhoods. And so positive storytelling became my niche. Like I wanted to make sure that when people saw me coming in, they're like, oh, it must be something good coming in if Tashara's in the neighborhood this weekend. So that's how it all started.
Okay. Now, you are a graduate of the Texas A&M. Howdy.
Come on, howdy. They've been cutting up a little lately, but yeah.
Yeah, they've been cutting up. Your experiences at Texas A&M and so on. I went to University of Oklahoma, and what talk to me about just a little bit about your experience at Texas A&M.
So I always like to preface this by saying I experienced more life at Texas A&M than I had in a very long time, especially going to a predominantly Black high school. Most of my grammar school was predominantly Black. And so it was a culture shock, number one, going to Texas A&M, a predominantly white institution, but you learn about so many different cultures. So I preface it with that, saying that my world was just reimagined going to Texas A&M. That was the first time at Texas A&M my freshman year. First time I had a passport. First time I got on a plane.
Wow.
First time living in another country. All of that was by way of Texas A&M. And by way of Texas A&M, I lived in 3 countries total while going to school there. And so I say all of that, but I also draw from experiences that were not as positive, right? So I remember when President Obama was running the first time and he was campaigning. And I remember in the area that's right across from our student center, it was like a free speech type area where, kids will set up and clubs, organizations will set up outside of the student center. And I remember there was this game, as they called it, where you could basically throw these objects that were too similar to nooses, in my opinion, and throw them around Obama's neck. And so his head, I should say. And I was just not in tune with that. And so I just remember football players, and there were a lot of these kind of games set up on a student center. And I just remember football players coming and they would stand there. It made national news and everything. They would come and stand in front of these games and was basically like, I dare you to continue
do it
on.
now.
Yeah. And so I remember experiences like that weren't as positive. And again, coming from the background that I came from, you just become more aware of how people think. And more understanding too of how people are not thinking the same way that you're thinking. So I always have to preface it with, it wasn't all bad by any stretch of the imagination. Right. My, again, world was just reimagined once I got there, but there were some opportunity areas that Texas A&M can work on.
Yes, listen, I love
Seriously.
I love the opportunity, but I love how you look at your experience, because it was something that you were supposed to gain. It was something that was part of your journey and that shapes you into the woman that you are. Yeah. Because I think sometimes we kind of run from any type of, well, I think it's going to be like this, so I don't even want to go into this new environment, or I don't even want to even experience that new job or experience going to that school because I feel like it's going to be like this. Or you have people who are like, oh, you going to A&M? Oh, girl, don't go there. No.
And I would never say that.
Yeah.
I would never say that because I experienced so much at A&M, because even after all of that hoopla with the kids, the student organization, some of which, again, were right outside of the student center. I met some of my best friends at A&M. I was part of the founding of an organization at A&M. We just did a lot of work, and I met so many people that I'm still friends with today and have watched them grow into amazing human beings too. So A&M taught us a lot.
Yeah, I think A&M just prepared you for life.
Yeah.
Because look,
seriously.
Let's listen, because look at your reputation for pushing boundaries and showing up in your authentic, just being so authentic. So where does that confidence come from?
Whew. It comes from life. It comes from family. I was raised by my grandmother, and by any version of what a tough cookie means, she was that. From a small East Texas town, she is, and ended up moving to Houston in the 80s. And she just always instilled in me to be this tough person and know that life is going to throw its challenges your way. She only went to the 6th grade, but she was determined to make sure that her kids and her grandbabies went much further. And so I always remember those life lessons. And again, just going through life, being open to new experiences, especially going from where I'm from to venturing into Texas A&M, to being unafraid. And I know it may sound crazy to people to say, you were afraid to get on a plane, your first plane trip as a freshman in college. And because no one in my family had ever had those kind of experiences to show me what it was like at that time. And so just being open to that. And I think over time, all that has shaped the person that I've become, from a confidence standpoint, from a disrupting boundaries or barriers or whatever glass ceilings you want to put out there. I think all of that kind of leads to that point, or this point in my life.
Listen, because, we know you from your bold approach and the viral bun ministry. Yeah. But what did that experience teach you about visibility, representation, and just public perception?
Everybody got something to say.
I know. Don't they know? Y'all always got something to say. Y'all always.
Thing. Everybody got something to say. And it's not always going to be positive. So when you choose to be in the spotlight, when you choose to be as visible as I am online and in life, you got to take the good and the bad. And I will say, even with the moment for the bun ministry, and for those who are unfamiliar, it's when I wore my hair in a natural hairstyle on TV. And you would have thought I then cussed the people out on TV. I don't know. You would have thought I just did something just egregious.
You just naked.
And just did something crazy. And so I wore my hair in this natural hairstyle on TV, and people started writing in and just saying really nasty things on social media. However, I always like to say, going back to everybody has something to say, the feedback was overwhelmingly positive. I mean, little girls were showing up with their hair that way. Parents were sending me pictures and images of them doing their kids' hair. And all these different things came from that moment. But what really came from it is when I was able to speak directly to those who had a problem with it. And Channel 8, ABC Dallas, WFAA here, allowed me to have 5 minutes of airtime. And for anyone who is familiar with media, having 5 minutes of airtime on TV is a long time. And so they allowed me to speak directly to those who had taken issue with me wearing my natural hair on TV. And it's crazy because I know the conversation has been brought back up as of late with Michelle Obama talking about natural hair and us having to assimilate to be in some of these spaces that are predominantly dominated by white individuals. And so I think about those conversations and how me showing up in that space at that time, wearing my natural hair, certainly allowed some shift in that conversation surrounding natural hair and professionalism.
Yes. And you know what? It did start such a movement, because during that season, I'm looking at, there's an organization I'm a part of, Jack and Jill.
Sure.
And one of the things that we push now is the Crown Act. That's an actual something for kids to be celebrated in and for them to be honored. I don't remember that growing up. I'm 51 years old, and it was, you had your puffs and you just went on about your business. But I remember when my oldest Caitlin, and we all have our puffs, and you had 2 puffs or you had 3 puffs, just depending on your hair. And I remember her first experience with someone from another race judging her on her puffs. I'll never forget, we were in the pediatrician's office, and the little girl kind of touched her hair like,
not touch.
And I said, we don't touch her hair.
Yeah.
And then I just remember she looked so confused. Caitlin looked so confused, like, why is she touching my hair? And why is she looking at it like in such disgust? But it just was a moment just to have that discussion, but to see it now, how you brought it to the forefront, and to see how the world has completely changed. And everybody's like, oh no, my baby wearing her puffs, she wearing these braids, we about to let you know.
And I love that even Jack and Jill chose to bring that into their I don't want to say curriculum, but chose to make that a part of the conversation, because I think even, again, I told you the conversation is back at the forefront right now.
Yeah.
The fact that we're still talking about this in 2025, 2026 even, I think that people need to continue to hear the conversation, because they'll think that everything is all good because they see a few people wearing their natural hair and proudly rocking their natural hair and locks and afros and all these different things. But that is not the case. People are still struggling with this conversation on a daily basis.
Yeah. So thank you for that. Because thank you. You and Michelle, y'all started it. So how do you stay true to your identity in spaces that, often try to shape or limit who you are?
Oh, that's good. I do want to mention too, with the Crown Act, there's a whole Crown Coalition, and those ladies, I mean, they have been putting in work for years and years. So the fact that Michelle was able to bring that conversation back to the forefront, and the work that we did in the conversation, amplifying it even more, was certainly part of it. But I just want to pay homage to those women for the Crown Coalition who really got that work started. As far as how I stay true to myself in all of these spaces, that has been difficult, because I think a lot of people will see, the saying, they see the glory, but they don't know the story.
Yes.
And when I was doing all of the things that you have mentioned, speaking out for the Crown Act, amplifying natural hair, all of those different things, those were some things that not my colleagues within the station that I was in, but just overall journalists, they would say often that, oh, that's not going to stick. Oh, nobody cares. Or, oh, why is she talking about that? Oh, the story should never be about you. So it wasn't always something that was positive. So you got to be willing to take the backlash that is also going to come along with you disrupting quote unquote norms. And so as far as how I'm able to do it, I always remember who and whose I am.
That's right.
That's always super important to me. And I think oftentimes when you get into these spaces where your identity is challenged, you got to remember that. And if you don't remember that, you just fall kind of by the wayside and thinking that you have to evolve into who these individuals want you to be. I'll never forget when I first got into journalism, I would hear how people were talking, and I was like, oh, I want to talk like that. Or I would see how people was dressing, or how they were wearing their hair, and I was like, oh, I want my hair to look like that. But you got to remember, a majority of those people did not look like me. I'll never forget when a consultants came in to my first TV station, and they had a pamphlet that showed you all the looks for journalists, or how they should wear their hair, how they should talk, and all these different things. None of those individuals in that book look like me. And so when you go into these spaces, again, remembering who you are, what your identity is, and being comfortable enough not to allow those around you to change who you are.
That's good. That's good. All right. So what's new for you?
Whew, a lot is new for me.
Love it.
I have my organization, Loud Women Lead. We've been
on.
doing a lot of work in training women to get on stage and share their stories, whatever those stories may be. So that's been a huge part of what I've been doing. So it's a storytelling and consultancy, where we try to train women to get on stage and share their inner stories that they normally wouldn't feel comfortable doing. We do that for 6 to 8 weeks, and we have a TEDx style type conversation where they're able to get on stage and share their stories at the end of it.
So if we wanted to be a part of this, how could we do that? Or
loudwomenlead.com.
Okay.
Loudwomenlead.com. You can get involved. In fact, we just released our speaker applications. We have about 50 applications thus far.
All right.
So yeah, if you guys want to get involved, loudwomenlead.com to support the work and support the mission.
Okay. So what is your dream assignment, or even partnership or project you haven't checked off your list yet?
Dream assignment. Well, one, I would say, first of all, from an interview standpoint, interviewing folks like Oprah, Michelle Obama. I know those are easy answers, but certainly I think they have a lot of wisdom to offer for someone, especially from Oprah's standpoint, because I too want to launch my own full-fledged media production company and continue telling the stories the way that I know that we should be hearing and telling them, because I think right now we're in a dire situation where our stories are being erased.
Yes.
And if we're not in a position to tell those stories and understand how to tell those stories and share our mediums, we're just going to get left by the wayside. And I think it's very important that we continue telling stories right now. So ultimately launch a full-fledged media company where we're able to continue sharing our stories, and the women that I'm training by way of Loud Women Lead, they'll also be able to share their stories on those platforms too. And hopefully, Miss Oprah can give me some pointers on how to make that happen, because she's done it 2 and 3 times over.
Yes, she has. Yes, she has. So as we kind of wrap up,
Yeah.
what are your final words of just encouragement do you have for women who are navigating their own path?
That's a good one. Just keep going. I have
Yeah.
had a very crazy 2025. Lots of ups and downs. And I think it's so important that when you're in the thick of it, reach out to someone. Know that there are people that are there and willing to support you. I think so often we're in our silos and we're trying to handle and do all these things on our own. So reach out to someone. Know that you have support. Know that there are people around you that are rooting for you. I think oftentimes, too, we're so worried about people who are not supporting the work and focus on the people who are. You know, you put so much energy into the people who are not supporting you, but focus on all those people who are sharing your conversations or whatever, YouTube videos or the work that you're doing, right? Focus on those people and know that you're not alone. Reach out for help.
All right. Yeah. That's a blessing. So how can we keep up with you?
At TasharaParker.com on all social media. And then again, at Tashara Parker, I should say, and TasharaParker.com, and then LoudWomenLead.com if they want to hear more about Loud Women Lead.
All right. Well, thank you so much for taking time out of your
you.
busy schedule.
Thank you.
Always just a pleasure and honor to sit down with just such a great woman of God and who loves not only just women and just people. Just thank you so much.
Thank you.